You were 24 years old, sitting in a flooded intersection in a city that never stops screaming. The water is soaking your socks, but the only thing you care about is the flashing red timer on your phone. A luxury SUV cuts you off, splashing sewage water onto your helmet visor. You check the bag behind you, terrified that the soup has spilled inside. Up there, in the glass towers, people are dry, watching the rain like it's a movie. Down here, the app screams at you with a notification sound that makes your stomach turn. You twist the throttle, forcing your engine to cough through the deep water. Your wheel hits a pothole hidden by the murky flood, and your leg slams down to save the bike. Pain shoots through your knee, a sharp reminder that your body is just a shock absorber for the machine. You keep moving because stopping means the engine dies, and if the engine dies, you don't eat. But your story didn't start in the rain. It started a year ago with a promise on a glowing screen. The ad said, "Be your own boss." It showed a rider smiling, holding a fistful of cash. You signed the loan papers for the bike, your hand shaking with excitement. It felt like freedom. You finally owned something that could take you places. When you put on the jacket, you felt like you had joined a modern army of the industrious. That first day was beautiful. The sun was out, and the city felt like a grid of opportunities. The first ping sound gave you a rush of dopamine, like winning a lottery ticket. The shop staff smiled at you. You were new, clean, and part of the system. The customer tipped you. You calculated that if you did this 50 times a day, you'd be rich. That night, you ate with the veterans, feeling like one of them. The old rider showed you his scars and laughed, but his eyes didn't smile. You laughed too, thinking you were smarter, faster, and luckier than him. For a few weeks, the numbers on your screen went up. You felt like a genius. You reinvested your profits into gear, buying into the lifestyle completely. You learned the rhythm of the traffic. You became a shark in the asphalt ocean. You learned to carry 3 orders at once, maximizing every minute. You memorized the alleys, becoming a master of the shortcut. Paying that first loan installment felt like a victory lap. You stood on the bridge looking at the city you were conquering one ride at a time. Then the app offered you a bonus quest, just 20 more rides by midnight. It was a trap, but you didn't see it. You saw free money. You started riding faster, taking risks you promised you never would. You ran upstairs until your lungs burned, chasing the timer. When the confetti exploded on your screen at midnight, you felt invincible. The exhaustion in your back didn't matter. The app told you you were a winner. You woke up tired, but the app was already calling you back for the morning rush. You got back on the bike. The machine doesn't let you rest. Slowly, the invisible costs started creeping in. Gas prices ticked up. You noticed more green jackets on every corner. The army was getting too big. You saw the old rider fighting for an order, and the fear started to set in. Then came the update. The base pay dropped by 10% quietly overnight. You did the math. To make the same money, you had to work 2 extra hours. The waiting times got longer, the restaurants got busier. The manager pointed you to the side door. You were no longer a partner, you were a nuisance. You stood in the sun, smelling the grease, separated from the cool air inside. The app asked why you weren't moving. It tracked your GPS, but not your reality. When they threw the food at you, you said thank you because you had to. You rode angry. Anger makes you fast, but it makes you careless. At the luxury tower, the guard put his hand up like you were a criminal. He pointed to the service entrance. You aren't allowed to walk where the rich walk. You descended into the basement, breathing the fumes of the garbage trucks. You waited for the service elevator, losing precious minutes of your life. The customer snatched the food through a crack in the door. No eye contact. They judged you for the crumpled bag, not knowing the war you fought to get there. The 3-star rating hit your profile like a punch to the gut. Because of one bad mood, you lost your bonus eligibility for the whole week. Panic set in. The bike loan doesn't care about star ratings. You decided to skip lunch. Eating takes time, and time is money. You chewed on dry bread at a red light, fueling the engine of your body. The heat radiating from the road started to cook your brain. You saw the old rider taping his broken mirror. He looked like a ghost. He told you he fell asleep for a second, just 1 second. He said the app doesn't bleed, only you do. Then the rain started. Sensible people went home. You stayed for the surge pricing. Your visor fogged up. The city lights smeared into blinding streaks. You almost died at a slippery intersection, your heart hammering against your ribs. But the ping came again and your conditioning took over. You accepted. You dripped water onto the restaurant floor. They looked at you with disgust. You were invisible to them, just a wet object waiting for a package. You begged for the order. They told you to wait your turn. The streets turned into rivers, traffic locked up completely. You drove on the sidewalk, breaking the law to serve the algorithm. People shouted at you. You were the villain in their story, but the victim in yours. You arrived late. The timer had run out. The customer refused the food. It was cold, it was wet, it was your fault. The cost of the meal was deducted from your wallet. You just paid to work. You sat in the rain eating the expensive sushi you couldn't afford, tears mixing with the rain. The app warned you about your cancellation rate. It threatened to fire you. You collapsed in your room, wet clothes sticking to your skin. You dreamed of the notification sound. It wouldn't stop ringing. You woke up sick. Your body was screaming, but your debt shouted louder. You drugged yourself with caffeine and painkillers. The day became a blur. You were a robot made of flesh and anxiety. The bike needed repairs. The mechanic took the rest of your profit. You saw a kid on a bicycle. The competition was getting desperate. You stopped on the bridge, but there was no beauty left. Only the drop. The night shift took you to the club district. Chaos and drunks. Someone tried to grab your bag. To them it was a joke. You fought back with a rage that frightened you. You were protecting a sandwich like it was gold. You hid in an alley shaking. You were turning into an animal. You called home and lied. You told them you were building a career. You showed them the shiny bike, keeping your face out of the frame. The weekend rush hit you like a tsunami. Triple orders. You were a juggler on a tightrope, balancing soup, tea and rice. The police were waiting. They know riders are easy targets. You dodged them, taking the long way, losing time to save money. The elevator was broken. Of course it was broken. Your knee throbbed with every step up the 10 flights. You handed over the food, gasping for air. Walking down, you realized you weren't climbing a ladder. You were running on a wheel. And then the storm returned. The one from the start of your story. You couldn't see the road. You could only feel the danger. The customer pinged you. Where are you? You looked down at the map for 1 second. Just one fatal second. The car came out of the dark like a monster. The impact wasn't loud. It was just a sudden, violent shift in gravity. You slid across the asphalt, the grit tearing through your protective jacket. For a moment, the world was silent. The app finally stopped screaming. You saw your bike twisted against the rail, your livelihood destroyed. You tried to get up, but your arm refused to listen. The food was scattered on the road, a ruined feast for the rats. Your phone was still attached to the wreck, glowing in the rain. It said, "Order failed." It didn't ask if you were alive. Cars drove past. You were just debris on the highway now. The hospital waiting room was full of people like you, broken gears. The bill came. It was more money than you had saved in a year. You lay in your room, staring at the ceiling, one arm in a cast. You opened the app with your good hand, hoping for mercy. It said, "Account suspended." You were a liability now. You tried to talk to a human, but the chatbot just looped the same policy. You realized the truth. You never had a boss. You had an owner who didn't even know your name. The mechanic told you the bike was dead. It was worth nothing. The bank called. They wanted their money. They didn't care about your arm. You walked the streets, watching other riders zoom past in the rain. Without the jacket, you were nobody. You had been ejected from the colony. You sent photos of your cast to an email address that no one checks. The auto reply thanked you for your patience. You ate instant noodles alone in the dark. You sold the wreck for scrap metal. It was the only way to pay rent. You watched them strip the bike. It looked small and fragile. They peeled off the sticker. It was just plastic trash in the mud. You walked home with a pocket of cash that felt like failure. You went to the street stall. The old rider was there. He didn't say "I told you so." He just handed you a cigarette. He said, "The machine eats everyone eventually. You just got chewed up early." Days later, you stand on the corner watching the swarm. You see a kid. He looks just like you did a year ago. Clean jacket, new bike. He smiles at his phone. He thinks he's winning. You want to scream at him, but he wouldn't listen. The dream is too loud. You walk past him to the warehouse. You need a job. The warehouse is cool and dark. It smells of cardboard and dust. The shelves go up forever. It's a different kind of city. You realize it's the same system. You are just a different part of the engine now. You put on the orange vest. You trade one uniform for another. Outside, the traffic roars on. The rain falls. On thousands of screens, the little dots keep moving. They race against time for pennies, thinking they are free. The city lights up, beautiful and cruel. You know now that the convenience of this world is built on the bones of the invisible. Your ride is over, but somewhere in a penthouse, a customer taps order again.